Support WrestleTalk!
Dragon Lee, the real-life brother of AEW star Roosh, and one of the most talented luchadors from the last 10 years, has signed with WWE. On its own, that sentence sounds like just the latest minor skirmish in the AEW versus WWE war. While Dragon Lee is an amazing high flyer who's been a mainstay of New Japan's Super Juniors division, his name value is far below some of the other free agents from the last half of this year, like Bray Wyatt, Sasha Banks, and William Regal. But if you zoom out, quite a bit. Zoom out even more, please. Dragon Lee to NXT could be one of the most significant signings of 2022. Because WWE might not have actually signed an individual wrestler. They might have just signed a whole promotion and tied up one of the biggest wrestling markets in the world. Let me explain. First, I'll start with the story of Dragon Lee. Somehow, this dude is only 27. He made his debut in 2014 for CMLL, which is either the #1 or #2 promotion in all of Mexico, depending on when you check in. This is where he formed the famous faction Los
Ingobernable.
with Andrade and his brother Roosh. And because of CMLL's working relationship with New Japan and Ring of Honor, he quickly made an international name wrestling for these top promotions around the world. But in 2019, CMLL fired Dragon Lee when he worked PWG's Battle of Los Angeles tournament after being told not to. Lee went to the only other major promotion in Mexico, AAA, which meant New Japan could also no longer use him due to their exclusive relationship with CMLL. Chuck in a pandemic, and suddenly, one of the best luchadors in the world lost his global exposure. Remember the wrestling geopolitics here. CMLL works with New Japan. AAA does not. Fast forward to August 2022, where he debuted in AEW, reuniting Los
Ingobernable.
with Roosh and Andrade for their Trios tournament. They were defeated by the Young Bucks and a returning Kenny Omega. Great for the elite, but not so good for the debut of one of the great international factions. Roosh and Andrade weirdly beat up Lee afterwards and removed his mask, killing the AEW version of their faction on the first night. Because it's far better for them to include Matt Hardy and Private Party. I've always thought that was a contributing factor to Andrade's unprofessional behavior backstage in the weeks that followed. From the moment Andrade debuted in AEW, he openly spoke about how he wanted his whole family to join him. Roosh, Dragon Lee, Dralistico, even Rick and Charlotte Flair. Tony Khan booking him and Roosh to turn on Lee in their first night felt like the final nail in that fantasy booking ideas coffin lid. Remember Unhappy Andrade? That will also come back in this story. Actually, Andrade told me one of the reasons he's unhappy is because you haven't subscribed. So subscribe and enable notifications to always on for daily wrestling news videos. At the same time, Dragon Lee was trying to get started in AEW, also having wrestled his brother Roosh at ROH's Death Before Dishonor pay-per-view the month before, what was seen as his AEW tryout. Fightful Select report that this was when WWE entered the chat. As soon as they found out Dragon Lee was wrestling for AEW without a contract, WWE, under the new control of Triple H, jumped in and made an offer. Wrestling Observer Radio has corroborated this, with Dave Meltzer saying that was the catalyst of it. WWE finding out that AEW had put a guy on television with no deal. Lucha Blog report that Dragon Lee and his other brother and AAA tag partner Dralistico were quickly brought in for a tryout with WWE. They decided to pass on Dralistico, who is rumored to have since signed with AEW, but brought back Dragon Lee for a second tryout, where WWE then offered him a deal. By then, AEW decided they wanted to sign him too, and apparently for more money. WWE were only offering Dragon Lee NXT money. He's not getting main roster money. That's supposedly significantly more than he can make in Mexico, but not as much as AEW could offer. It's implied he weighed up both choices and also took advice from his friends and family who have worked in both companies. In the end, even though he could make more money in AEW, he chose NXT because he could be a focal point over there. In AEW, as we've seen with so many other signings, you can get lost in the shuffle and probably not wrestle a lot. Lucha Blog, who has insider sources in Mexican wrestling, has tweeted, Dragon Lee is also very close to Andrade, who probably had a few thoughts. His few thoughts being, AEW, with Andrade reportedly under suspension following a backstage altercation with Sammy Guevara in September and trying to get out of his contract to return to Triple H and WWE. That's the story of how WWE swiped Dragon Lee away from AEW. Now, here's how WWE are just doing that for Mexican wrestling in general. Meltzer reports that Dragon Lee's deal was made in early December, but they were told to keep it quiet. Instead, WWE wanted to announce his signing after Dragon Lee and Dralistico won the AAA tag team titles at AAA's biggest show of the year, Triple Mania on the 28th of December, the same night as AEW's New Year's Smash Dynamite special. But WWE weren't just trying to show AEW up on their usual Wednesday night slot, they literally did it in a wrestling ring. Because Dragon Lee and Dralistico won those AAA tag team titles from AEW stars FTR. And Dragon Lee revealed he signed with WWE immediately after and then vacated the belt, meaning FTR didn't have to be pinned if the belts were going to be vacated anyway. They could have retained and vacated themselves. Ha ha ha, vacated themselves. It sounds like they're going to do a poo. And a poo is not far off what actually happened. Because the real-life fact now is that, for the first time ever, a WWE-signed guy beat an AEW-signed guy for a title. This is a classic way old-school promoters use to undermine their rival promotions, and is why companies are so protective of their guys losing to other wrestling promotions' talent to this day. Rather shockingly, Meltzer reveals this didn't catch AEW by surprise. Tony Khan was aware. It was part of the deal. I'm sure that if this was reversed, that never would have happened. This wasn't just a case of one lone wrestler going into business for themselves. It was the entire AAA promotion. WWE cameras were at Triple Mania to film Dragon Lee's announcement, which they shared on their official NXT page, which Triple H himself retweeted. His latest bit of subtle mind-free, like how he tweeted about William Regal after he'd gotten him to leave AEW behind the scenes. And then Dorian Pena, the Director General of AAA, posted a WWE gushing tweet. "You deserve it! Dragon Lee has signed with WWE. Make us proud!" Meltzer believes this is a sign of AAA ditching their relationship with AEW in favor of WWE, tweeting, "I don't want that to mean they are done working together, but it's clear AAA is trying to build a relationship with WWE, so the dynamic does change." And if you just look at the talent that lost on Wednesday night, Triple Mania appears to be the end of their AEW chapter. FTR lost their tag team belts, which they held for 438 days, and AAA's head of talent relations, Conan, announced Sammy Guevara and Tay Mello were stripped of their mixed tag team titles after they cancelled 3 times, which is actually a bit of a shoot, as AEW pulled Tay Mello from Triple Mania when they needed her to wrestle a previously postponed tag match on the same night's episode of Dynamite. Fightful report that it was FTR who requested to lose their tag titles, as they wanted to end their AAA run before 2023, where they were expected to take time off. Regardless, this is a sizable shift in wrestling geopolitics. As I said in my video essay, WWE is screwing with AEW, link in the video description below. I believe Triple H is trying to forge working relationships with major promotions to squeeze Tony Khan out and remove one of AEW's unique selling points, that it's the company that works well with others. It appears WWE now has its first full defection in AAA, and with WWE's Carl Anderson working Wrestle Kingdom and Kairi Sane rumored for a Royal Rumble surprise, perhaps New Japan is next. Although that in itself is a headache, as New Japan won't work with AAA. ESPN is reporting Dragon Lee will debut in NXT in January, while Lucha Blog writes they've heard it will be February. And in another potentially huge detail, the press release from Dragon Lee's manager at Lucha Libre Agency reveals he'll continue with his contracted Legends of Lucha Libre officially licensed products and continue with entertainment projects. They only mention one entertainment project in that, which is a series of children's books. If it lasts, that is far more in line with an actual independent contractor status, where WWE would have exclusivity over wrestling appearances, but Dragon Lee is freely able to pursue other projects. This could be another WWE tactic against AEW, making Connecticut just as good a place to work, because expect this trend to continue. WrestleVotes have tweeted, "I'm told WWE is hopeful the signing of Dragon Lee is just the start of standout talent agreeing to terms with the company. Hearing Triple H and crew have expectations to land other high-quality names early in 2023. Which sounds an awful lot like how Triple H ran NXT in its glory days. What do you think of the AAA, AEW and WWE situation? Let me know your conspiracy theories in the comments down below and I'll try and answer them. Now watch my full video essay on all the ways WWE is screwing with AEW. Tony Khan accidentally turned his entire promotion heel. At the exact same time, Triple H turned WWE face. I'm Ollie Davis, and this is how WWE is f***ing with AEW.